Welcome to CT's Unveiled, the podcast where we explore some of the most intriguing, outlandish, and sometimes chilling conspiracy theories from around the world. Today, we're diving into a famous urban legend with a very real twist, the Chupacabra. Many know the Chupacabra as a blood-sucking creature that terrorized livestock across Latin America. But what if I told you that, in Mexico, the Chupacabra might have been less than a creature of legend and more of an earthly phenomenon? Let's dive into it, shall we? Picture a field scattered with lifeless animals, their bodies drained of blood. There are no slash wounds, no signs of a predator savagely tearing at their necks. Instead, you notice two small puncture marks on each neck, too precise to be accidental. The bloodthirsty creature responsible remains unseen. El Chupacabra, or the goat sucker, was a phenomenon that started around the mid-90s in Puerto Rico. Sightings of dead goats and cattle with very distinctive punctures on their neck started the frenzy that soon would travel to the Central and North American territories. But it wasn't until the second half of the 90s that all major media outlets in Mexico would cover the story. 1996 was the year of the Chupacabra mania. Mexico was gripped by news of a creature terrorizing farmers by attacking livestock and drinking their blood. Stories of this monster spread rapidly, with news reports, talk shows, and eyewitness accounts flooding the airwaves. Folks in the rural areas lived in true fear of what might happen to their livestock or even them themselves when the lights went out at night. In the big cities, the Chupacabra was in everyone's conversations. Some people saw it as a mythical creature, some others as a divine punishment or a demon itself. There were even some who thought of the Chupacabra as a visitor from another planet. Even years after, it's hard to tell who was right. An article from Professor of American Studies Calvo Quiroz suggests that the timing for this creature to take the spotlight was more than convenient. To understand the context, let's go back to the early 90s in Mexico. A series of economic reforms were put into place that seriously changed the lives of small farmers, especially indigenous communities, including the signing of North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. In 1995, just within a year of the implementation of the international agreement, and after several poor economic decisions by the ruling political party in Mexico for 71 years, El Partido Revolucionario Institucional, or the Institutional Revolutionary Party, PRI. The Mexican economy plummeted, provoking a market crisis by inflation and devaluation that surpassed 50%. The crisis was accompanied by soaring unemployment, high rates of housing foreclosures, and investor mistrust. In addition, the government, led by President Carlos Salinas de Gortari, faced significant scandals such as the assassination of the strongest candidate running for the 1994 presidency, Luis Donaldo Colosio, who was assassinated during one of his campaign rallies. It's in this turbulent setting that the Chupacabra stories emerged. What better way to divert the public's attention from government failings than with a sensational monster hunt? The Mexican media, especially Televisa, jumped on the story. Known as Mexico's largest media outlets and closely aligned with the PRI, Televisa was a powerful tool for influencing public opinion. Televisa's role was instrumental in creating a narrative that both frightened and fascinated the public. This fascination took focus away from political scandals and helped restore some public trust in the government as a protector against this alleged threat. Since the 1970s, Televisa has been a powerful arm of Mexican culture. It held a near monopoly on broadcast media, heavily aligned with the Institutional Revolutionary Party, or PRI. This alliance allowed Televisa to shape narratives that benefited the state. By the 1990s, as corruption allegations mounted, Televisa's coverage of the Chupacabra provided an escape from reality for many Mexicans. The Televisa law passed years later in the early 2000s cemented this symbiotic relationship. It granted Televisa rights to digital frequencies, expanding its influence. But during Salinas' presidency, Televisa's influence was already unparalleled. Game Eyes and Toledo's article highlights how the media shaped Mexican society by amplifying fantastical narratives, suppressing dissenting voices, and reinforcing the government's grip on public perception. Now let's bring in the tools of Daniel Pipes, a scholar known for debunking myths through rational analysis. Pipes identifies the following for dismantling fabricated phenomena. 1. Knowledge of history. Historically, the relationship between the media and the government has existed for many years, but there were events that made it clearer. The 1988 presidential election in Mexico was marked by widespread allegations of fraud and manipulation, culminating in the infamous system crash. This was the first election where the PRI, Institutional Revolutionary Party, in power since 1929, faced a serious challenge. Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas, representing a leftist coalition, gained significant support, threatening the PRI's dominance. On election night, early results indicated Cárdenas was leading. Suddenly, the government announced a technical failure in the vote counting system. When the system recovered, PRI candidate Carlos Salinas de Gortari was declared the winner. This crash is now widely viewed as a pretext to alter vote tallies in favor of Salinas. It is no coincidence that the major media outlet Televisa covered the news of this system crash without questioning or giving it a second thought. 2. Evidence. Is there credible proof? Despite numerous sightings, there's no scientific evidence supporting the Chupacabra's existence. In fact, years later evidence would suggest that the first sighting of the Chupacabra was by Madeline Tolentino in Puerto Rico after she saw the 1995 science fiction horror movie, Species. Her description of the Chupacabra is very similar to the creature in the movie. It is also suggested that what she saw might have been just a mangy dog. 3. Common sense. Does the story hold up under scrutiny? Applying logic, the Chupacabra fails the test. Livestock deaths attributed to the creature can often be explained by natural predators or disease. Furthermore, the inconsistencies in physical evidence despite widespread fear suggests a psychological, rather than biological, phenomenon. When viewed through Pipe's framework, the Chupacabra appears less like a cryptid and more like a government tool. By redirecting public anxiety from economic hardship and government mistrust to a fabricated threat, officials gained breathing room to stabilize their power. So, why did the public buy into this myth so easily? One word: fear. The Chupacabra tapped into deeper anxieties: fear of the unknown, rural isolation, and the search for an escape from reality. Monsters created by the collective conscience, such as the Chupacabra, have a deeper psychological meaning. As Jeffrey Jerome Cohen explains in his essay Monster Culture, 7 Theses, monsters symbolize cultural anxieties and boundaries. He argues that monsters are constructed through cultural narratives and embody what societies fear, reject, or cannot understand. His 7 Theses outline how monsters challenge norms, signify the unknown, and reveal suppressed desires or conflicts. Monsters serve as a mirror to humanity, reflecting our societal, psychological, and moral complexities. Cohen's work provides a framework for analyzing how cultures define themselves through the creation of the monstrous. There is a reason why fear-based narratives thrive when institutional trust erodes. By feeding this fear, the government and media create a self-sustaining cycle of distraction. Ultimately, the Chupacabra reflects how power structures manipulate narratives. While the creature faded from headlines, its legacy endures as a case study in political misdirection. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of CT's Unveiled, and I'll see you next time.